Hey there, everyone. It's Nina. Thanks so much for joining me today for another video project. And today I'm going to be sharing a couple of different things. One, I haven't done any shaped cards in a while, and I thought trying to make some shaped cards using the new Simon Says Stamp February 2022 card kit would be a fun project. The other thing I wanted to share with you was a fun technique that I utilized in one of the batches of shaped cards, and that is ink blending on glossy cardstock. Now, some of you may know of some of the Simon Says Stamp glossy cardstocks that are out. One of them is white, and I can't tell you how gorgeous it looks with ink blending. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. So like I mentioned, I'm going to be using contents from the February 2022 card kit. This kit is absolutely stunning. It has so many beautiful floral themed products in it, and I couldn't wait to make some cards with it. So let's start first with the heart-shaped cards that I made using some of the pattern paper that's in the kit. See these fun patterns? I just fell in love with them. So I pulled out a couple of Simon Says Stamp nested heart dies, and I'm going to cut one of the patterns from one of the smaller heart shapes. Then I'm going to take the largest one from that set, and I'm actually going to die cut that twice from some cardstock. This one happens to be a cream color. This is going to mat the pattern paper, and so we're going to have this nice border around the pattern paper. Because I want to make this into a shaped card, I do need to score one of these two pieces. So I took my scoreboard and a bone folder and just scored along the top half of our heart. I'm going to crease those folds and then take one of the dot runners that's included in the kit and just add a bit of adhesive along the top edges of that heart. Now I can nest this right behind the heart that has no score lines on it, and that'll create a folded card base, which looks really, really good. And I like creasing this on all sides just to make sure that I get a really nice crisp fold. So that's our card base. Did you see how easy that was? Like, you could make a ton of these in no time at all. So I have my pattern paper here, and I'm putting a bunch of foam tape on the back side of it, and then I'm going to layer that right on top of our shaped card. So now we have this really beautiful paper matted by that pretty solid cardstock. Now that we have our card created, let's add some sentiments. So in the card kit, you're going to get some glitter cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and mine is pink, and I really loved how it matched with this piece of pattern paper. So I'm going to die cut a thanks greeting die from CZ Design and Simon Says Stamp, once with the sentiment itself with the glitter paper, and then the second die that's included in that set, that piece is the shadow layer, and I'm going to cut that from some blue cardstock that matched really well with the pattern paper. On a guava sheet of cardstock here, this is from my stash, I'm going to stamp one of the greetings that's in the Simply Thank You stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, which is part of the February kit. I'm going to stamp that greeting with some embossing ink and then emboss it with cream embossing powder from Simon. Now, not all of the items that I'm using today are from the kit. Most of the items that I am using are, and some of the items like the die cut greeting and also the heart dies, those aren't part of the kit, but I do have them linked below in the video description along with the kit itself if you're interested in anything that I'm using today. So after I attached my greetings into the center of my card, I did pull in some sequins, and I'm going to glue those around the greeting just for a little bit of sparkle. I really liked how these paired up with the sentiments, and this card is pretty much finished at this point. So I loved how this turned out, and I wanted to make a few because I'm in need of some thank you cards right now. So all the cards you're going to be seeing today are thank you themed. However, you could totally change the sentiments on any of these cards that I'm showing you today and make them for birthdays, Valentine's Day, just hello in general. Whatever you're needing, totally change up the sentiment to fit the card style that you need. So this was the first card that I created, and then I made a second one. I really had fun with this design, so I pulled out some more pattern paper that I really loved from the kit. I matted it onto another card base that I created with some cardstock. This one happened to be some dark midnight green from Simon. And now I'm going to add some hearts with the Simon Says Stamp Heart Party die set. This die cuts out a bunch of hearts all at once, which is great for layering, which is what I'm doing right here. I'm stacking a bunch of hearts up on top of each other, along with some glitter die cut hearts. So that way I can have some dimensional hearts surrounding my greeting. That greeting happens to be the Swoopy Thank You die from CZ Design and Simon Says Stamp. I just die cut that from a couple of different colors of cardstock and layered that on top of the pretty pattern paper from the kit. So I love how this one turned out too. I plan on actually making a few of these off camera in addition to the ones that I've created already here. I really like this design. It's simple, easy, and I can make a whole bunch and then use them for cards throughout the year. So that was one shaped card design. You saw how we created those out of some hearts, but let's go a little bit more fancy now. I'm going to pull out the gorgeous Orchid Rose Bouquet stamp set that's part of the kit. We're going to stamp and emboss it to create an emboss resist on glossy cardstock, and then fussy cut that beautiful flower design to create a shaped panel for our A2 card. So first things first, I have a piece of white glossy cardstock here. It is cut to 4.5 by 5.5, and the reason it is at 4.5 by 5.5 is because I wanted a 1/2 inch hinge on one side of the card. So we're going to score at 4 inches on this particular piece. So the height of this panel is 5.5 inches, and then the width is the 4.5. I don't need this to be exactly 4.25 by 5.5 because I want the width of this panel to be smaller than 4.25. So I just went with it because that was what I had on hand, and I just made a few of these. So 4.5 by 5.5 is what I worked with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score at 4 inches, so I have a 1/2 inch hinge, and that's going to be the piece I'm going to stamp on. I've lined up my Orchid Rose Bouquet stamp set into my Misty. This is a large stamp, so you're going to want a really big Misty for this. And I'm going to prep the surface of my paper with a bit of powder tool so that I can heat emboss on this. That's very important. After I've gone ahead and prepped the surface, I am going to take some embossing ink and stamp onto this glossy cardstock. Now, because I prepped the surface of this particular piece with the embossing powder prep tool, that's going to allow me to make sure I don't have any stray powder sticking to this glossy cardstock. So I've gone ahead and removed the paper, and now I'm going to bring in some embossing powder, and that happens to be white from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to sprinkle it over top of the stamped beautiful florals here, and all that ink is going to pick up that powder. And again, because we prepped it, we're not going to have any stray powders, or at least we shouldn't have any stray powders sticking anywhere we don't want them to be. So like I said, I made a few of these, and I'm going to start heat setting them. Now, when I'm working on a piece like this, I like to lay it on my Positively Everything tool from Simon Says Stamp, because then that means I don't have to hold this piece as I'm trying to emboss it. This pattern is covering most of that paper, so by putting it on the Positively Everything tool, I don't have to look for a place to try to hold this paper and burn my fingers at the same time. So using the PET for that is super helpful. So I've heat set all my panels, and now I'm going to work on ink blending. Believe it or not, you can ink blend on this glossy cardstock. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. So first one I did was just pink. I wanted to go a little bit more on the Valentine-y kind of side of things, so I went with the trio of Positively Saturated pink inks, which is Bubblegum, Sweet, and Taffy. And I'm using a Simon Says Stamp blending brush to blend these colors. I'm going back and forth over everything to make sure I get the blend exactly how I want it. I didn't want to go heavy-handed all at once. So by working in a gradual motion, I get the heaviest that I want without going too heavy too quickly. So I'm going to take a cloth here and buff off any ink that might be sitting on top of that embossing. Because we did white heat embossing on top of this glossy cardstock, the embossing powder is resisting that ink. So now we get that really nice, crisp, beautiful print on our paper here. The best part about the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink is that it is water reactive. So you'll notice I splatter water on top of each of these panels that I'm creating here, and that's going to create some really nice variation in the ink blending. Here's another panel that I did using some teal, a blue, and a pink color and creating a really nice gradient across this card. After I created this one, I also did make a rainbowish background. I don't have that one on camera, but I do have the color combinations that I used for that particular color scheme listed over on my blog. So if you want to check that out, I have the color schemes for each of these cards listed there for easy information. So like I said, the water splatters look fantastic, but also what I like doing is adding splatters. So I pulled out a couple of shimmer mists and ink sprays. I've got a shimmer mist from Brutus Monroe, a shimmer spray from Dilutions, which is a really nice pink, and I even pulled in some Distress Spray Stain. I've got Villainous Potion here that I'm going to put on this pink one. I even added a little bit of white paint on some of these projects too. You can splatter whatever you like on top of these. Anything is going to look good. I always particularly love white paint when I'm doing splattering. It just adds this really nice finish. Here's that beautiful rainbow background that I was talking about. I used a variety of Simon Says stamp blending inks to create a really nice transition of color across this. So as you can see, this design can be utilized across a variety of cards, not just Valentine's Day or love themed, but even into the later part of the year too, even summertime. All right, so these have now dried, and as you can see, this piece actually has a really nice finished edge that follows along the beautiful florals. So it's really simple on doing that. Now, if you have coordinating dies for this stamp, you could totally use those. I don't have any, so I'm going to use some fine tip scissors to fussy cut this flower out. It's really simple. It's so big. It just takes literally 2 minutes to fussy cut the edge of this out. So I fussy cut each edge of all of my flower panels. And now I'm pairing them up with some colors of cardstock that I thought would look good with these. So I have Surf Blue and Cotton Candy from the kit, and then I also just pulled out some plain white that I thought would look good with the rainbow. I'm going to attach the panel of cardstock here. This is literally a flat panel, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so this will fit in a nice A2 card. It's a single panel, and I'm attaching it to our flap on our flower panel. Then on the back side of all of that, I'm attaching another piece of cardstock the same size and the same color as the panel we just adhered. What I'm doing is I'm sandwiching that hinge that is attached to our floral panel onto these two pieces of cardstock so that you can't see the hinge. So this looks seamless now, and it looks really, really pretty. I did that for all the colors of cardstock that I've chosen. After I attached all my flower panels to their bases, now I'm going to add some sentiments. I pulled out this thank you greeting from Simon Says Stamp and CZ Design. I thought it would look absolutely gorgeous on a couple of these cards, cut from some silver glitter cardstock. You could, of course, also use the glitter paper or the colored cardstock that you have in your kit, but I had this silver glitter cardstock that I really wanted to utilize, so I thought I would pull that out and pair it up with the kit contents. I love being able to mix and match some stuff from my stash when I'm working with the kit sometimes, just to be able to really play around with the contents that are in the kit, and I can customize the projects to fit what I'm looking for. So I love that kits are assembled all together and everything coordinates, and then I can just literally pull bits and pieces from my stash and not have to think hard about how I'm going to design my projects, because a lot of the thinking has already been done for me. The kit contents coordinate so nicely together that it makes the card projects so easy to make. I'm going to go ahead and pop my greeting up onto my card. I'm going to have it hang off the edge just a little bit, which kind of adds to that nice finished floral edge of our panel. Now, as an afterthought, I did rethink to myself, oh, you know what? I could do some ink blending on the inside of my card. I could have done the ink blending before attaching all of this together, but I didn't think of that. So we're going to do it afterwards. I'm just simply masking off the back side of my flower panel so that way it doesn't get any ink on it. And I'll do a little bit of blending with the same pink ink that I used on the front of the card, and that's going to make a really nice ombre down this cardstock. In addition to that, I'm also going to add a little bit of tone-on-tone stenciling, which is simply using that same ink through a stencil on top of the ink blending you've already done. It's creating a tone-on-tone design. So this stencil is not part of the kit, but I thought it would look really good with the florals from that stamp set, the Orchid Rose Bouquet. This happens to be the Rose Bouquet stencil. So I thought this would look really nice as a nice stenciled design on the inside of my card, and I just love it. It really just pairs nicely with the front of the card. So to finish things up, I did add a few sequins. I know you're probably not shocked. If you're somebody that watches my videos all the time, you know how much I love adding sequins to my cards. So these are some clear sequins. They're kind of actually more of a confetti. They don't have a hole in the center, but they look really, really good as just a little subtle glimmery shine on this glossy cardstock with the beautiful ink blending. And that's what I love about this project is that using the glossy cardstock to be the paper that you're going to ink blend on, it changes the appearance of the ink blending. It makes it so smooth and mirror-like. It's really fascinating to see, especially in real life. It's always so hard to capture these fine details of something like this on camera. So hopefully it's translating to you as the viewer seeing this ink blending on this glossy cardstock, because in real life, I absolutely just love it. So I hope you'll try it because it's a really cool technique. And I think you'll be just as excited about it as I am doing it on your own. Now here I have that rainbow panel, and instead of using a thank you greeting, I used "You are simply the best," which also works for a thank you card. I'm going to pair it up with a small greeting from that nice little Simply Thank You stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it on black cardstock. So I'll just apply a little bit of white embossing powder on top of that stamped greeting. Then I'll heat set that so it has a really nice crisp finish on top of our cardstock. And then finally I'll take my Tim Holtz mini trimmer and trim this down into a small sentiment strip. My plan is to adhere this underneath that big die cut greeting, and that way it'll hang off the edge of the card just like we did for all the other sentiments, and it just really completes the design. Again, I added more sequins onto this card as well. Most of the cards that I made today all used just two different types of sequins. I used a blue mix, and then I also used the clear sequins. So that makes it nice and easy. As you can see, I really didn't pull that many things from outside of the kit into these projects. I really tried to stick to just using kit contents and then just pulling in inks and other small supplies. So I hope that today's projects were two things. One, they were inspiring to you on utilizing the February 2022 card kit from Simon Says Stamp, but I also hope that you will really try out that glossy cardstock ink blending technique. I really, really love how this turned out, and I think you're going to have a lot of fun trying it out too. So please try it out. If you do, be sure to tag me on social media if you make something and then post it. Tag me especially on Instagram because I would love to see what you're creating. If you enjoyed today's video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. I hope that you are inspired to create, and I can't wait to come back and share more with you all. So until I see you all again, I hope everyone has a very wonderful day. Bye!